Innovation Rockstars. Innovation Rockstars.
In this episode, we are joined by the award-winning global technology executive and best-selling author Alex Goryachev.
Hi, and welcome back to Innovation Rockstars. My name is Chris Milot, and in this episode, I am thrilled to welcome Alex Goryachev. So Alex has an impressive track record, spending more than 20 years as a global innovation technology executive. And on top of that, he's a globally recognized and award-winning expert in digital transformation, and on top, a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. So that's quite a lot. It's great to have you on the show, Alex. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris. I'm delighted that we get to meet here and in this wonderful setting. I love the guitars in your background, by the way.
Thanks much. And let's kick things off, as always, with a 60 seconds introduction sprint. Now, the sprint is all about you and your professional career. So, I'd say, Alex, the stage is all yours. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, if I think about what my professional career is, to be honest, I still don't know, right? I keep innovating, and I wouldn't say I go with the flow, but I try to just follow the opportunities that the universe gives me and make the best of it. About 25 years ago, I had a choice. Do I really work on the Wall Street or do I work in Silicon Valley? And kind of most of my friends were split in between the two locations. And, the Silicon Valley won over. I moved where there it was and still is a phenomenal place. Although 20 years later, it reminds a bit of a Wall Street. I've spent some of my time in the music industry working for a legendary startup called Napster. Ironically enough, I was driving rights management. That is how we actually pay artists there. And then I moved over to Cisco, where I spent nearly 2 decades driving different innovation and transformation initiatives. Which was a wonderful opportunity because Cisco transformed itself all the time.
100%. All right, thanks. And so next thing, Alex, I will, as always, I'll give you 3 sentence starters, and I'd like to ask you to complete those sentences. So let's see. Number 1 is, one thing nobody knows about me is that...
It will remain a mystery.
God, this is great. Okay, I'll take it. Number 2, the single most critical element that separates innovation success from failure probably is
communication.
Communication. Oh, that's interesting. And let's talk about that in the later course of the podcast. And finally, number 3, recently I changed my mind on
how important the brain is. I feel that body is more important, and I'm trying to shift from my brain into my body, and brings a lot of happiness and joy and innovation for my life.
Wow, that's deep. Why do you think that is?
I'm still learning that.
Yeah.
I'm still learning that, but I feel it. It's definitely perhaps body is more primal, right? So that's we've been innovating. By sensing the environment, and we really don't sense it in the brain. We probably process there, but we sense it through so many other things.
And it's a journey, right? Beautiful. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Hey, and Alex, what you said before, little did I know that actually in your past professional life, as you said, you worked in the music and entertainment industry, right? So I'd be interested to know, how did the learnings that you made during that time in the music and entertainment industry influence your later executive career as head of global innovation centers for Cisco?
Well, I think it's a very complex question on multiple levels. I think innovation is about the ability to expand the mind. And I think every time, funny, I talked about the body, but now we're talking about the mind. But it's about our ability to expand our awareness. It's about our ability to expand the consciousness. And it's about our ability to see and hear and feel things that are not necessarily in front of us or imagine them. When you think about the music business or any live performance or art that you're witnessing or experiencing or creating, it's a very much a similar process. Because you're moving in the unknown. And I think innovation is a lot about moving in the unknown. When we think about art and entertainment, we always co-create with others. If I'm looking at two guitars, I'm sure you have a favorite musician that you probably seen more than once. And even with the same set list, two different concerts are never the same because you co-create with an audience. There's a lot of communication involved. And last but not the least, there's to make a successful executive career, there needs to be a bit of a theater or innovation theater, as some people say. So I think entertainment is something that blends reality with imaginary, and then it creates an experience. And innovation very much like that. And there's lots of money to be made in innovation and the entertainment as well.
Right, and what we see, particularly maybe in the last few months, or maybe in the last year or year and a half, maybe. Of course, right. The term innovation has a tendency to become one of the most used buzzwords, but it's the thing everybody demands, that every organization strives for, that every website basically promotes at least somewhere. But I'm of course acknowledging that there are many definitions of the term innovation, but just asking your personal opinion, and also based by the experience you have, how would you define that term? How would you define innovation today?
It's our constant ability to co-create, right? To co-create with ourselves and others. It's innovation is a horrible term. It's a buzzword, and everybody has its own meaning for it, right? And at the same time, I think it's about evolution. It's about being able to constantly adjust. And to that point, you said that in the last year or two or a few months, as a planet, as a society, as any organization, we've been going through a lot of turbulence. And I think now every human can really define what innovation is, because we innovate as parents, we innovate as countries, we innovate as society, and now these are not the empty words.
And that is, this is a wholesome definition. And, frankly speaking, in the past, few other guests I interviewed recently, they were also going into that exact same direction, right? They were describing this as a capability, as, building muscles, for individuals or also for an organization to do exactly what you just described. So that is interesting. So we have that. We have, on the one hand, you compared it to a bit art, actually. Then you have the capability perspective. But now you're also selected as, US technical expert to the International Standards Organization, the ISO, working on global innovation standards like the ISO 56000 innovation management. Now, that's a different aspect, right? Because this is on standards. Now, we'll be talking clear standards, maybe rules, procedures, whatsoever. So can we talk about that? So what is the ISO 56000 innovation management exactly?
Well, I think exactly it goes to the ability of us speaking the common language, right? And again, I think even in the art, right? Even in the art space, right? We understand the difference between watercolor and acrylic, or between different genres in music like jazz or hip hop. And I think in order to have the innovation as a mindset, as a way of life, I think it's essential that the organizations, they have the same definitions for different terms and different standards. And I think through the ISO, we really have the opportunity to tap on the global expertise of people because it's a collection of people from different countries working together, right? Trying to bring the best practices. And what this really allows us is to learn from each other, be that in Japan or in Korea or Israel or Germany, whatever those countries are, to come up with the best practices. And, at the end of the day, standard is always a guideline, right? It's not set in stone, but it's always good to have a starting point, especially for the organizations, for either large organizations that are trying to transform or to drive consistent process, or for medium and small size organizations that are trying to be innovative. And I think maybe going back to your previous question, innovation it's really a way of life, right? So you can't innovate from point A to point B. It's a continuous process, much like transformation. A lot of people are, like I see a lot of companies that are hiring a transformation program manager, and somehow it has a span. Yep. And I think that's very ironic, because transformation, much like innovation, is a constant process. The minute that you stop transforming or innovating, you die as an organization, or as an entity, or as a family, or as a societal unit. And I feel that standards and a dialogue between innovators in different countries or organizations is essential in keeping that evolution and keeping that flame alive.
And I mean, you don't like magically stop innovating because you're done, right? You don't do the same with a transformation, obviously, right? You're not saying, oh, well, okay, great, this year we have innovated a lot. Innovation is done at the organization. That is basically not the way how it works. Now, can you maybe just on a very high level, briefly walk me through some of the principles of the ISO standard, just to understand what it's, made of, what are some of its key components?
Well, I think the key components is being able to first of all describe what the different terminology is for different things. I mean, everybody has their own definition for innovation, but again, it's important that the organizations have the guidelines. So we go from literally from point A to point Z to understand what are the different mechanics that are involved in innovation. Whenever that's process innovation or technology innovation or business innovation. And then what are the typical processes and the workflows that are involved in that? And terminology is important. The process is important because different organizations can go and then evolve on top of that process. But I think having a starting point is essential. And I think that framework really provides a good starting points for the organizations to your point, not only innovate, but constantly evolve.
Yeah, understood. Okay, now Alex, before we move on to a few actionable insights out of your recent out of your professional career so far, what I would like to do is to play a quick game, and the game is called Either Or. So Alex, this is how it works. Let's see. I'm really curious to see how this will play out. So I'll give you two options, right? And you choose one, and then spend maybe 1 or 2 sentences each to briefly explain your choice for the option. So let's see. Number 1, are you either an early bird or a night owl? Or don't you sleep at all?
I'm an early bird.
Early bird. Got it. Okay, number 2, Alex, if you had to start over in your professional career, would you either work in a small company or in a large corporation, and why?
I wouldn't change a thing. I really would not change a thing. And I think I'm trying to remember where I started. First of all, large companies, like a lot of small companies, if it's a really large company, it's a very fragmented thing with a lot of different tribes and organizations. But I think I started as an entrepreneur, actually. My first job was being self-employed, and I wouldn't change that for a minute.
Beautiful. Okay, and now, finally, would you either stop working in the field of innovation, or just stop working at all?
This is going to be a wordy answer, but first of all of us are working in the field of innovation. And now that I have 2 kids, 8 and 3, I work in the field of innovation every day. But I think now that I have children, the saddest thing that I've noticed in myself is that when we become adults, we as humans, we kind of stop innovating. We stop listening to new music or questioning authority or challenging reality. And my kids gave me a real strong push to question what is the lifestyle that I'm learning. And so bottom line is I'll never stop innovating, no matter if that's my personal life or work life. And, somehow now we're believed that this whole thing is one.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
That's a beautiful answer. And Alex, this kind of leads to innovate or die. Right? I mean, Peter Drucker, famously declared this phrase, and many others have, shared, rephrased, whatever, reshared it again. But I guess the core sentiment is clear, right? Stay ahead of the curve of change or you're roasted. So let's talk about that for a bit. What would you say? How can organizations understand and also communicate the urgency of innovation?
Yeah, the organizations are... they're so large and complex. But if we think about the just on the awareness side, I think it goes back to transparency, right? I think what's organization? It's a collection of people, and as people, we often are not in touch with our feelings. We're often not in touch with reality, and we do not want to speak self-evident truth about what's going on inside us or outside in our communities or families. The organization is the same thing. I think it's critical that the organizations listen to the environment and they have a very candid communication and a dialogue about how well they're doing in that environment and are they meeting their goals and needs and aspirations. And when you think about typical company, you go to a company meeting and everything is so great. It's just amazing.
Right.
How come we're out of business 6 months later, right?
Yeah.
So communicating of the urgency of innovation is transparently describing what's going on in the industry and in the marketplace and in the company. And that will drive change because acceptance or awareness is what drives change.
So in order to do that, you need to have a strong capability, a strong muscle built in the organization to actually perceive and also understand that change, right? Because, there might, some organizations could say, well, oh yeah, sure, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing change whatsoever, but man, we, earned a lot in the past few years. We have great products, great business model, great services out there, customers that love our products. So why change, right? So they really have to translate what they find specifically externally into an urgency, into a style of communication that says, well, the world is changing, customers are changing, needs are changing, technology is changing, we are not changing. Maybe that's not a good idea, right? So it's building a capability, building a muscle, but somehow you need to translate this into everybody understanding that standing still is probably leading up to failure, right?
Yeah, I mean the only way forward is for movement. If I think about building that capability, you've talked about the decision making. That decision making, often happens in the boardroom where people look at consolidated financial statements that I'm sure been fudged and massaged many, many times, and every single word is very politically correct so that nobody gets in trouble and everybody gets promoted and keeps their wonderful jobs.
Right.
You and I know that innovation doesn't happen in the boardroom. Or it often happens, and most of the time it involves executive compensation, right? What we're talking about is building that muscle is an ability for every employee in the company to express what they're seeing and exchange ideas in the workplace. When people communicate and collaborate, they become empowered. They have a voice, and that's when innovation happens. That's the core capability that needs to be developed. And by the way, speaking about ITONICS, that's why I love your product, because it does many things, right? But it really allows people in the organization to have a voice. And when everybody has voice, that executive boardroom gets very different data.
Yeah.
Because there's way more input, and that input is way more real.
Yeah, that's true. Constantly striving to empower everybody to innovate, and that's what we're trying to do. And Alex, in your Wall Street Journal bestseller, I think it's called Fearless Innovation, right? You also state that now that's the counter thing, is that most corporate innovation projects and corporate innovation initiatives fail. Can you talk to that? Why do you think that is? Are they doing kind of a bad job in empowering those individuals, or are there some other, things that lead to failure?
Well, I think most of the things that lead to failure in the large corporations are either politics or low engagement. Somehow people say that it's budget, but when you have better politics and high engagement, you kind of always have budget. So I think the essence of the failure of most of the innovation teams is because they're set up as innovation teams. They're not set up as cross-functional effort. Cross-functional innovation is much harder to do. But when people create innovation initiatives, sadly, it often becomes another silo. And it really creates another class of citizens in an organization. Like these are the innovators. And the rest, 99% of the others, they're not unwashed masses, right? They're the innovators. And I feel by putting the money and creating a shiny object versus doing the hard work, and to your point, enabling everybody to innovate, getting people on the same page, getting the differences on the table and talking through those differences, is what leads to failure.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think innovation belongs to all. It does not belong to a group of cool kids in the corner office with kombucha on top and better stock options. That builds resentment, and that builds another silo. Yeah.
I was just about to say that, right? That just builds another silo, saying, well, these are the crazy guys and girls over there, right, trying to do something, trying to maybe even disrupt some parts of our business. So yeah, let them do their job. And talking about food, by the way, I guess, in your book, you actually talk about the secret story behind sushi and how it is connected to innovation. Can you tell us more?
I'd love to talk about it. And maybe just a very quick comment. I think you use that word disruption, which is yet another buzzword as you and I know, because when you're in a large organization, it's all about, let's admit it, it's all about how you play well with others. So nobody in the organization wants to be disrupted, right? It's all about how you integrate innovation and get all the functions from legal. Attorney, I'm married to an attorney. Attorneys do not want to be disrupted, right? It's all about how you integrate everybody from legal to finance in the innovation process and build value versus disruption. And if I think about value, I think sushi, the salmon sushi is a wonderful example, right? Where, as I write in the book, I personally didn't know this, that 20, 30 years ago, nobody ate salmon sashimi in Japan. And the reason that we eat salmon sashimi, not only in Japan, but around the world, is because Norwegian government had a surplus of salmon and they really wanted to create a market for it. And what's a better market than Japan, where there's a lot of fish consumption? You can sell sashimi, salmon sashimi at premium prices. But the roadblock that they needed to overcome is, nobody thinks it's a good idea to eat salmon sashimi. And they were able in 20 minutes, in 10, 15 years, if you think about it, shift the entire world, and Japan first, by building a communication program and by working with all stakeholders and getting them on board, whether that's chefs or restaurants or TV or media. And as a result, through that complex change management, they actually changed our food habits, and they've created what we now would call a staple of Japanese cuisine that really came from Norway. I feel that's pretty incredible. And look, if that is possible, a change in the organization, big or small, is possible too, as long as you play nicely with others, respect the traditions of the organization, much like Norwegians respected the traditions of the country, and build on them gradually by getting others on board.
So I guess that is an impressive. I didn't know that, and that is actually an impressive example with, I mean, massive impact, right? Everybody knows sushi today, and it's like on some of the weekly lunch schedules for like many individuals. So that's a huge impact actually. And I guess as a second example, you also. Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
No, but again, building up on this whole, like, I believe innovation is a win-together job, right? Now, can you imagine if Norwegians or an outsider, as typically happens in a large organization, would show up and say, hey, I'm here to disrupt your sushi business. I'm working on something very cool. It's going to change the world, and you're all going to love it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah,
right?
Probably not. Absolutely
anyway, your lunch would have been different.
Absolutely. And I guess a second example you also cite, I think it's interesting, is Wikipedia. Also as a classic example of innovation. Okay, sushi and Wikipedia, I'm not sure if there is a connection, but certainly there's a connection to innovation, right? So what is that, taking Wikipedia also as an example of innovation? Where's the connect?
I think the connect is you can trust the masses to self-govern and create a world-class product. And if we think about the Wikipedia, right, it's really, we can argue about the accuracy of some of the information there. Having said that, that's a wonderful resource that's created by people like you and me. There's not a large corporation behind them. There's a nonprofit that really just facilitates certain things. It's a self-governing community. And that self-governing community is able to go and serve million peoples around the world, not only by giving them the information, but by allowing them to contribute to that information. And I think that's a stellar example of something that can be implemented in every major organizations, because as you know, in major organizations, nothing is documented. People tend not to share information because information is job security or power. And, most of the knowledge bases that you go to or documentation has been outdated by several years. Of course.
Yeah.
Not the case with the Wikipedia. So I think Wikipedia is a wonderful example of how you can empower communities, societies, or employees to contribute. And an amazing thing about the Wikipedia is the strategy for Wikipedia itself, what is the market, how it should be governed, how it should be operated, is crowdsourced. Mm-hmm. Now, I would argue that that is the biggest lesson that corporations should take from Wikipedia, because in many, many cases, outside consulting firms, which have a lot of knowledge, I'm not going to argue with that, they're wonderful, contribute to the strategy or create it. And what if we were to give every employee an opportunity to comment on the strategy, crowdsource that strategy in the company? I think that's not necessarily a better idea than large, consulting firms, but there would be more impact and more employee engagement, and true innovation would occur. And that is the biggest Wikipedia lesson that I'd like companies to remember.
That's interesting. It sounds like, crowdsourced strategy. And I'm pretty sure this might be a very good way also for any individual in the organization to actually connect to the strategy and to the tactics associated, right? Because oftentimes, strategy is something that some boardroom, some directors or whomever maybe is leading the company, or the consultorium that is leading a company is deciding in a closed room, hidden from anybody, and then it's like being communicated top down, and here you go. But oftentimes there is not really a connect, right, between many individuals in the organization and the actual strategy. So connecting to that, crowdsourcing into that could be also a great tool. And talking about tools, what other tools do you suggest organizations should put into their toolbox to actually build and lead, global, maybe even cross-industry businesses and technology teams when focusing on innovation? What else could be in the toolbox that helps innovation succeed for organizations?
I think it's really expanding their knowledge. And the only way you can expand the organization knowledge is through the knowledge of the employees, right? And it's really about the opportunity to get the employees to be involved in the local innovation community. Um, Look, our organizations are created by people like you and me. It's what all of us bring to work. And when we're excited about something, you can feel it. You can feel that energy. And I think it's important that the organizations look at the ways that their employees can be active in the communities. Can they work with startups? Can they mentor startups in their field? Not everybody is a technology company, but I think getting people on a cutting edge within their industry to work with startups or individual change maker is a very, very good investment, because people like this is why I love having interns, right? People that come in and they intern, they show up and they're saying like, what are the tools you're using? What's that? Oh my God, that is so outdated. You should be using that. And in the large companies, somehow many people probably don't know about, unless big consulting company tells them about different things. So internship, number one, exposure in the community by getting people to work with a local ecosystem, local venture community, local startup community too. And then the third thing is as many rotational opportunities as possible. Anything that breaks the silo and allows us to move from point A to point B in the organization or different organization within the company is priceless in building that connection and building that culture where people question the way they do things.
Right. So, stay in motion. And would you argue it specifically to do job rotation, right? Like really say, okay, well now, 6 months, 12 months into a role, whatever, into a team, move.
I think that's very good.
Yeah.
I think rotating managers and employees is very good too, right? I think anything that there needs to be movement and there needs to be change, and I think people generally are not comfortable with change, and at the same time, that comfort with change is comfort with innovation, because every time people are innovating or they're creating change, and lowering the barrier of resistance to change in the organization and getting the mindset that change is going to happen, it's acceptable, and by the way, it's going to happen all the time, perhaps sounds like chaos, but we live in a chaotic world. And the capability that we need to build is being open to that chaotic world and embracing it and then creating beauty out of it. Or bigger revenue, or whatever that is, customer satisfaction. Knowing those metrics and driving to that metrics whenever that's, love as a company value in Southwest Airlines, for example, or profits and margins like it is on Wall Street. One is not more important than the other in the context of business. It's how all of this combines together.
Got it. I think, and thanks for the actionable recommendations on what to do and what to put in the toolbox. Now let's have a look into the future, if possible, somehow, specifically on the big picture. Alex, how do you think the corporate innovation landscape will evolve over the next 3 to 5 years, maybe?
That's. I think I'm going to use the buzzwords in a way, but it's all about the co-innovation. It's about the ecosystem innovation. It's about getting together and getting connected with others. Definitely the fact that some of us work from home and there's a flexible workforce brings a lot of ideas to the workplace. And I think it's essential that people capture those ideas. So going back to employee crowdsourcing, I think more smart organizations will double down on that. The word information management is a bit of an oxymoron, but you and I talked about the standards, right? There has to be standards in the organization. There has to be a way for people to express innovative idea, and there has to be a process for those innovative ideas to be evaluated and either funded or killed. And I think more organizations will establish programs just for that. As we are becoming distributed more geographically, it's essential that we capture the employee voice and we take it to action. And it's essential that we work with our competitors and we work with our ecosystem partners on creating a bigger value.
And a few weeks ago, I actually heard the term or the sentence, collaboration is the new competition, which I think is an interesting term to think of. Now, when we come from corporate innovation, let's look at you, Alex. So what's next for you personally? I mean, what are some of the high priority topics on your personal radar?
I think it's about being true to myself and, living my life to the fullest potential. And that is really, I'm not big on a career nowadays. I think, or rather, I don't want to have a career at the cost of giving up, my being a parent and creating a lunchbox for my son, which is something I do every morning and I love doing it, or getting to a dance party, which is something that I now have the opportunity to do. So I think for me personally, it's really about helping startups succeed and really helping drive an agenda, a good agenda for an agenda-setting company. Whenever that's helping transform a big business that really wants to continuously transform, or getting a small company to the next level. But I think all of it is about integration. It's about integrating family. It's about integrating life and the community and all of this.
Okay, so we looked forward, for the last question I got for you, Alex, and then I think we're already kind of done with this episode. But when you now look back on your professional career, what would you say, and I'm interested to hear that, what would you think was your greatest innovation rockstar moment so far?
Innovation rockstar moment.
All right.
To be honest, I think my innovation rockstar moment was enabling a lot of innovators, right? Innovation is a team sport, right? Invention. I mean, if you were to ask me about what did you invent, Alex, I'd say, hey, many years ago, I invented an opportunity for a venue to sell tickets online, and you're able to pick your concert seats. You actually have a seat map, and you know when you're going, and you can do that through the internet. This later became a product that Ticketmaster integrated that I helped build, 25 years ago. And every time I buy concert tickets, I'm like, oh, remember, Alex, you did that. But in reality, if I think about the rockstar moment, it's about empowering others to innovate. I am blessed that I worked for people and that were true mentors that empowered me to innovate. And they gave me the opportunities to be the innovator and be in charge of my own destiny. And I think my biggest moment is being able to discover and enable people like that. And if I think about what I want to do in the future, going back to your previous question, that's exactly what I want to do in whatever my next gig is empower others to drive change, because change only happens when everyone is involved in it.
That is a beautiful rockstar moment, and actually also a beautiful mission, Alex, going forward. And with that rockstar moment and with that mission in mind, we already wrap up this episode. Alex, that's it. Thanks for sharing your experience and insights. It has been incredibly insightful to listen to you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. And to everybody listening or watching, if you like the show, then leave us a rating or a review and share the podcast with colleagues or whomever you think this might be good for. And if you want to get in touch, simply shoot us a message at innovationrockstars.show. Now that's it. Thanks for your time. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and bye-bye.
This was Innovation Rockstar Alex Goryachev, taking us beyond the big buzzword of innovation. If you would like to give us feedback on this episode or know someone, perhaps yourself, who also has some thrilling stories or insights to share from the world of corporate innovation, just shoot us a note at info@innovationrockstars.show. For more inspiring innovation stories, visit our website at www.innovationrockstars.show or browse through our Innovation Rockstars channel on all major podcast platforms. And while you are here, please leave us a rating for our show.